Hey everyone, Eric here. Thanks for tuning into the Millepreneur podcast. Today, I'm super excited to be introducing to you our guest, Shannon Jean. Shannon has multiple businesses across various different verticals and is a ultra successful entrepreneur, from selling watches to managing luxury real estate. He also has his own podcast, which I'll leave linked in the description.
Why don't we just start off by just having you introduce yourself and where your love for entrepreneurship really stemmed?
Sure. So my name is Shannon Jean. I really had a love affair with small business ever since I was in college. I went to Cal Poly and had planned on
Go Stings.
what's it? Yeah, that's right. And planned on launching a landscape construction company, which is where my interest lied at that time. And I ran that business up here in the Bay Area, as well as down in San Luis and Paso Robles area, all while I was in school. Hired all my friends. They all worked. We completed a bunch of projects. The goal was to work all summer so you wouldn't have to work the rest of the year. And it worked out pretty well. Had a great time. And eventually I started using, the computer just made me better. I was just a young kid and I was asking people to trust me with some pretty large sums of money to do these projects. And I started getting everything computerized, got into the Apple world with my first Mac, and it really changed my life. It made me so much more professional looking that I was able to just generate so much more revenue. And then I got involved in the computers themselves. I was dealing with lots of different ways to make money, but the computer really fascinated me. And I started going to some auctions and buying some product to resell, just to kind of learn that market. And it really took off. And I decided back then, I said, I'm gonna really push this. I love working with the Mac. How can I, if I could create a revenue stream here and build a business around this, it would get me out of the dirt. So, I loved working outside. I love landscape construction. I love horticulture, but I was always in the dirt, and, I couldn't get my ideas across if I wasn't out there. And I thought, this isn't long-term good thing for me. Mm-hmm. So met a couple people like you, started reaching out, went and volunteered at a company that was in the, computer business down in San Luis Obispo. Learned a lot from a guy named Don Ruxton, and then moved up here and launched a business called Mac Rescue with a good friend of mine that I was going to college with. Mm-hmm. And it was a great time. Perfect timing. The .com boom was really kicking up, and we just rode that wave, and we built that business up quickly until we had about 30 employees.
What, in college?
This was right after college. So I graduated, came back up to the Bay Area. I wanted to stay in San Luis, but I just could never generate enough money down there. Right. So I love it down there, but so came back up here where all the the economy is much better. Mm-hmm. And just really got into it. And the buying and selling for me was always so attractive. I love the deal and finding the connections, and I'm digging through, meeting people, traveling all over the place, opening up relationships, being able to buy product, bring it into a facility. We had about a 40,000 square foot facility way out in Concord. Okay. And, we would refurbish that product and sell it all over the world. And we had some great contracts, and that business was awesome. And it was the first business that I really learned that things kind of have a lifespan. So after it was about 10 years, and I started to get a little bored and doing the same thing over and over again. And so we had an opportunity to merge with a company out in Kansas and shift all of our logistics out to the Midwest and allow me to take on a different role, which was great. Freed up some of my time. And so after about 4 years or so of doing that, I realized that I didn't want to be in business with these guys. So I sold my stake in the company and went out and started another business.
What made you make that decision?
We just had different ideas about growth and risk. There were some older guys at the time, good guys, but just wanted everything stable, wanted to do the same thing over and over again. And I realized I get bored pretty quick, And if I'm not challenging myself, if I don't come up with something new to try, it's just miserable. And,
Yeah.
looking back now at all these companies that I've started, and I kind of think of it as escaping employment. I really didn't
Right.
want to go to a job interview. I didn't
Mhm.
want to go work for somebody. And so I've been really fortunate not to have to do that. But if you have partners and investors and things, well, you're working for them too. And if they're
True.
not on the
Yeah.
same, yeah, if they're not on the same page with your, uh, you know, wanting to change things, try new things,
Your
expand.
vision, essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Then it's tough. So I decided it was going to be better for me to leave. So I did, and I started a new company in 2004 called Tech Restore. And we started also another company at that time called Rebound Trading. So I could kind of have a sandbox to do some deals that were outside of the tech space. I got heavily involved in the
Hmm.
luxury goods business. That was great along the way. So
Watches, right?
yeah, a lot of watches and some high end stuff. Met some great people in New York and have done that business for about 15 years now. And it's, again, ebbs and flows. It has a lifespan. Um, and then, same kind of thing after, I guess about 2016, I started to realize that Tech Restore, I was not the best person to be running that business anymore. I was in the way. There were no more deals for me to bring to the table because it built itself into this kind of cyclical business of repair with customers all over the country, school districts, companies, that kind of thing. And I had a great general manager, did a lot of business in Asia, which was great. But it was time for me to do something else. But it takes a long time to realize that, because
Right.
as
I would
the
imagine.
business,
Yeah.
yeah. And my wife, who's much smarter than I am, told me for about a year or so before that, she's like, you need to go do something else because you're just slowing everybody down. And so, we sold that company, and it's been great. They moved out to Oklahoma, and I think
All over
they're
the
doing,
map.
yeah, they're doing really well. And that's a great thing, about small businesses, that it doesn't have to be small. In the grand scheme of huge companies, yes, but we had a worldwide impact. We had customers all over the world. I had suppliers all over the world. We opened. I sold the rights to Tech Restore Canada to a great
Hmm.
guy, and they opened up a Canadian location up there. And so, I just have had a great time. I've been really fortunate to say yes a lot in my life, and to be very comfortable with risk. Um, no, not wipe out risk. I mean, I've done that once. I've been completely wiped out and had to start from scratch. But I was young enough that I was okay, and
Rebound.
and I learned a lot. That's why I started the company called Rebound Trading, because I said, okay, this is going to be it. I'm going to never have one business again. I'm going to always have multiple companies.
Smart.
I'm going to have a revenue stack, kind of like the same talent stack concept that you might hear about, but a revenue stack. Just you have different avenues of cash coming in different areas, because some businesses are, it's not just up, right? It's up and down. And so some years one company's going to do better than others.
Right.
You may sell one company, you may get another opportunity on another business. So after that, when I made that mistake and really got hammered, I went out and I just have kind of kept branching out and doing new things, and
Kind of like the
had a,
stock
had a great
market,
time.
right? Not putting all your eggs in one basket, and diversifying your portfolio to an extent, right?
Yeah, yeah. And once you have some, you have some great guides around you. Like if you get a great accountant, you kind of build your own board of directors, and you get a good banker, good insurance guy, or woman, your lawyer, your attorney. They'll tell you the same thing. As you start having some success, they're going to tell you to, hey, do try some different things, take some money off the table. Don't be 100% invested in one business. Um, it's made a big impact on me over the years, for sure.
Yeah. Where do you think that this entrepreneurial spirit really came from, though? Because it sounds to me like you never really wanted to work for anybody. So is this something that from a young child, as a young child, you already premeditated, or was this something that you developed throughout the years?
Yeah, not as a young child. I really think it woke up when I was going to college, and I think once I learned the strategy of exploiting the delta between the buy side and the sell side. That's what got me, is that, boy, I could buy this, thing for $500 and sell it for $1,000. And, I'm in control of my destiny. That's what I think. Maybe another big part of it is that as I hired people when I was in college, and I was just trying to make a living, and trying to live down in San Luis and have beer money and be able to travel and all that kind of stuff. And I was, I always joke around. I was just kind of pretending to work, I work all summer really hard. We had a great time, everybody, all my friends, we build these big projects.
Mm-hmm.
But I learned also that there's a lot of unreliable people.
Oh, yes.
And I know I started to feel like, well, there's only one person I can really rely on. That's myself. And so
absolutely,
I didn't want to have one person in charge of my destiny, like one boss. So I started to think about this concept, is that instead of one boss, you could have many bosses, right? Thousands of bosses, which are all your customers,
mm-hmm.
which is far less risky if you think about it than having one person control your destiny. Because people always mention to me, well, gosh, what happens if it doesn't work? Well, I would always reply, well, what happens if, you get laid off next week? If your corporation you work for decides to downsize or to change or whatever, it's not any different. I would argue that there's less risk in what I've done than working for somebody else.
Right.
Because if you can figure out how to make a little bit of money, I have lots of people come to me over the years, once you start to have a little success, and it's like, well, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I need to make 20 grand a month. I said, well, how do you make $500?
Right.
Can you go make $500 outside of your normal job or whatever you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? About 90% of the people can't do that.
Yeah. It's definitely difficult. For sure.
But if you can make 500, I can show you how to make 5,000, and I can show you how to make 50,000, because it's the same thing, but you just have to kind of massage it and scale it. Yeah. But if you're not willing to put the time and effort into how to make that first $500, because it's not sexy to make $500,
right?
And people don't want to talk about that. They want to talk about hitting home runs all the time and going to make all this big cash. But you have to build, I think, that foundation first, to where you get this fundamental understanding, whether you're selling software, where you're building software, whether you're selling a service. I just happen to be in the product business, buy and sell, and it worked great for me. But I'm a relationship person. So my big strength was in the buy side, is that I could research and kind of crawl up the food chain, keep going upstream to open relationships with very large companies, whether it was Dell, Apple, Microsoft, whoever, on the watch side, luxury retailers. I could get through to them, and I was very persistent, but very friendly. And I learned that if I added value to those relationships, those people would enjoy working with me. Kind of a long answer to your short question.
No, I appreciate that. I'm sure the listeners do too. For a lot of people that are listening to the podcast right now, they're thinking about hopping into an entrepreneurial venture. Like, what do you think would be, like, how would you know if entrepreneurship is for you? Because there's a lot of people that talk about being entrepreneurs, or wantrepreneurs for that matter. When would you know, like, if that's the right lifestyle choice for you? Like, is there any factors that go into that, and what would you suggest those are?
I think you have to really, are you comfortable powering through adversity? Because there's a lot of it. And, I talk, and now that I'm older and I can look back, right, you have the luxury of connecting all the dots, and I sound way smarter than I ever was. But it's hard, and you have to be able to, Elon Musk answered a question this past week. Somebody asked him, hey, what encouragement could you give a new entrepreneur? And his answer was, if you need encouragement, you should not become an entrepreneur.
Right.
And there's so much into that, that comment, which is true, is that you have to, are you the type of person that can pat yourself on the back when you have little small victories, maybe that nobody else would think is a big deal? Are you resilient? Can you live a frugal lifestyle? That's very important,
Yeah,
especially when you're just getting started. Can you do that? Do you have a good support system? Is your spouse very open to you doing this? Because if they're not, it's going to be more difficult for you.
yeah.
Are they
Mhm.
supportive of the risk? When I first started, my wife was a breadwinner. I was on her health care when we first got out of college. She went to work
Heyo.
for a law firm. It worked great because I didn't have to make any money for a while. And then,
Nice.
and then I made that $500. It's like between my partner and I, we could make $500 a month. So I think you need to look at your personality,
Mhm.
uh, because it is a lot of your personality. What kind of story do you want to tell? Is the fight exciting for you? Is that something that you can build on
Mhm.
and make it, you kind of have to build a cycle that fulfills yourself, that you powered through, you had a little bit of success. It doesn't matter if you're selling insurance or if you're selling products on eBay, or some other marketplace. Can you be happy with some success and then build on that?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. That's something that I preach on my YouTube channel. If the just frugal living and delaying gratification, I think that that's huge in terms
It
of
is.
entrepreneurship in general. And you mentioned having the right people in your corner too.
Yeah.
Super helpful. You got to have people that are experts within their own fields. To
Yeah. They're very helpful. Very
yeah,
helpful to you.
can't be a jack of all trades and be an expert at everything, right? So
No. I'm terrible at so many things.
well,
But you have, if you identify those bad things, you can solve that problem, right?
right. Well, you can identify. I mean, it's important to be able to identify your weaknesses and then try and work on those, or just hire somebody or make a connection with somebody who can supplement that. Right.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's finding, the first person I was introduced. I went to the bank because we needed money, and the banks never want to give you any money when you're first starting out. And I leveraged leveraged a relationship and got a little bit of access to some capital. And then the first thing this banker did is said, "Oh, here, you need to go talk to this guy. He's your account. He's going to help you out. It's going to be your accountant," because they want to protect their investment. And even other business owners, really important, that would help you. When I was just getting started out, before the banks would even talk to me and I had no money, I met a guy, online in Texas that kind of mentored to me and explained how I could use credit cards to build up I think it was about a $400,000 line of credit. And that may sound, no big deal right now, but this was 20 years ago and it was unheard of.
Right.
And I said, oh, okay, I can figure this out. And that's what we built our first business on, was those credit cards. Yeah. And learning the angles of, building up all these affinity points and mileage and travel. And there's the great thing about being an entrepreneur, owning businesses, is there's lots of things outside of just the money. The money is always secondary in my experience. You get to build a great culture that you enjoy going to, a team every day. I love that. But also, it enriches your life in so many different ways beyond finance. And
Right.
I do a small business show podcast each week. And my co-host is, he kind of charmed, or he came up with this term. It's like, we live a charmed life because there's so many opportunities for us: traveling, connecting with people, expensing. I expense most of my life, my cars, my travel,
Right.
my building,
Uh-huh.
over and over and over, stuff that W-2 earners
Can't do.
people they just can't do it. They
Yeah.
just can't do it.
Yeah, I don't think most people realize how much money that you're able to save by starting your own business at the same time, being able to write off certain things that are tailored towards your business, right?
Sure.
So when taxes come around, you're really saving a lot of money while also gaining the experience, right?
That's correct.
So I completely agree with you in that sense. And I think that's a perfect pivot into what I was going to be asking you next. I did take a look at your podcast and I listened to one of the episodes I think you did at the beginning of this year, where you talked about a couple of your different businesses and how you had to overcome some hurdles because of the pandemic. Do you mind elaborating a little bit more on the different businesses that you started? I know that you started a watch business and you had a luxury real estate business, from, if I'm not mistaken. Do you mind elaborating on that?
Yeah, sure. So, the watch business I just kind of stumbled into because I met someone I was buying other products for, a huge, one of the largest retailers in the country, and they said, "Hey, we have this division, and they're having a problem. Do you think you could help them?" I know nothing. I don't wear a watch, and but I know nothing about this, and I was shocked to, there was a market for $50,000 plus watches and $25,000 watches. It was very foreign to me, but I just figured it out. I flew to New York and I stayed there for a week, and I walked the street until I found some people that would educate me and that would buy from me and that trusted me. And I built this trust over time. And then with some of that wealth that we built over the years with these various businesses, we started buying some real estate. We like buying vacation rentals in different areas because we like to travel to those areas. So my wife loves to ski and my kids love to snow. So we bought a big lodge type home up in, Tahoe, and we rent that out. It's a great revenue stream. And then we buy some other places that, I like to fish, I like to hunt. So we kind of spread ourselves out. The pandemic, go ahead.
So Shannon, let me interrupt really quick.
Yes.
We continue. How do you turn that into a business? How does that, so when you have multiple properties, like how do you actually turn that into your own business? And I would imagine you're going to be able to write off any investments that you make in those properties, or if you're flying over to check in on them or what. Do you mind elaborating on how you actually do that?
Yeah, sure. So, when you, there's lots of rules with the IRS. Your accountant can give you advice on the best way to deal with those things versus owning a private, piece of property for yourself versus owning it as a business. So we buy every piece of property. It's its own LLC. And so each of those things are its own entity, and you have to structure them a specific way, but your real estate attorney or your accountant can help you with that. And then you do write everything off because you get to depreciate the house, the value of these properties over 27 years. And then that income that comes in is kind of tax. I mean, I don't say it's tax free, but there's very little tax on it.
Right.
And you do get to go. The IRS rules are, I believe, I'm certainly no expert, is that you can stay up there a couple of weeks a year, unless you're going to work on the properties. And we like to work on these places. And so I'm always going up there to do something. I just got back. We have a place up on the Trinity River where the steelhead fishing is just incredible. And, I was up there with two of my friends, and we put a new kitchen in this place. And so if you structure it as a business from the start, if you put it in an LLC, which also offers you additional protections legally and everything, if you get commercial insurance, which is more expensive, but again, it offers you more protections. You're building this as a business. It's not just, well, I own this place and I'm going to rent it out and make a little money on the side. We run them, and we buy and sell and trade and do different things. Right now, we only own a couple because we sold another one, and I'm looking for a new place. It takes a long time to find deals, especially in California.
Oh yeah.
And so you have to put a lot of time into investing in, but we love it, and they generate great revenue. Those businesses though took the biggest hit during the pandemic.
Yeah.
We had to give, within one, when the pandemic first hit last year, I think we gave $60,000 in refunds within a couple of weeks, right? As people canceled, and you have to, give them their cash back.
Yeah.
But the other key part of that is my wife runs those businesses. I work for her in that aspect, and she's really good at logistics, which I'm not very good at. But we would find the deals, and then I help her and manage parts of it, but she's really autonomous and makes the decisions about how it rents, who we rent to, the prices to charge, and that kind of thing. So we have a division of duties, which has worked fantastic in our business life as well as our personal life, because you're not on top of each other all the time. You're doing separate things. You got to kind of be careful when you work with your spouse, which I have for about the last 20 years, which is it's been fantastic.
Congrats.
But we do different, we do different things, and we've been married for almost 30 years, but after, that, but, yeah. So I don't know if that answers your question, how to set it up. If you Google, how to build a vacation rental business, you'll find one. I'm I know there's a book in here somewhere for me that I'm going to publish sometime about buying these, these houses and turning them into business. Definitely.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful. I'm kind of being selfish on that, and I wasn't going to ask that, but I just bought my own house out in Vegas.
Awesome.
And I'm going to be living in it and renting out the additional rooms. So that's
smart.
That's kind of why I ask, is like, is that something where I should turn that into an LLC, or like
you have to look at the different rules based on you living there. I think there are some different rules, but certainly you want to take every opportunity to the LLC concept to owning these houses is really strong, because if something happens and things do go wrong, your maximum liability is just that LLC, whatever assets that LLC owns.
Right.
And it's very hard to jump to all your other assets that you may have. So you want to do that.
Yeah, and from what I understand, I would be able to write off a lot of things if I were to get an LLC as well, just because it is an investment property, but it's also going to be my primary residence. So it's kind of an interesting gray area that I've been looking through.
Yeah, it's a great thing to experiment with, and like I said at the beginning, we started talking. You have to be comfortable with risk. I mean, I always ask my accountant, okay, well, what if we did things this way? And sometimes, they kind of raise their eyebrows a little bit. And I said, well, just tell me the risk. If is this, I always want to do what's legal, of course, but if there's some gray areas that you can do certain things that are legal, but, your accountant's like, well, I'm not sure this qualifies or that. And I always ask, well, what are the repercussions? If the IRS disallows it, okay, then do we come back and pay it, and we have a penalty? What is the risk reward? And so far it's worked out pretty good. Sometimes you get called back and says, hey, you can't do this. So you'll, extra, whatever, for a few $1,000s or whatever it is. But those risks are manageable. And I think that, I think it's your patriotic duty to pay as little tax as possible. And
that's the goal. Well, that's why I'm moving to Nevada, because there's no state income taxes. Property taxes are cut in half, and just a lot of opportunities, a lot of upside over there. It seems like.
I think so too. Yeah, I think there's a ton of opportunities. I love buying homes near colleges, for renting to students and signing individual leases on every room rather than just the house, because you can make a significant higher amount of money versus renting out the whole place, because you just rent each kid.
Exactly.
So that's great. So looking at those, there's always got to be something weird for me to make it work. The Tahoe place we bought, I made a tremendous lowball offer, and just to start the negotiations, and they took it. They didn't even counter, and I could never figure out why.
Really?
And this was, the market had dipped, which was great. It was about, I think it was 2012 or something when we bought that. And I found out somebody fell out of the third story window. Before they were fine, but the owners who were living in Texas, they just were done. They didn't want to deal with it anymore. And it was good timing. This place we bought a few years ago up on the Trinity River, there's only, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 houses around it on these parcels up there. Every other house burnt down in a fire, and this was the only house left.
That's lone survivor.
Yeah. And so the people that owned it were just done, and they were ready. So you got to just really research and dig, and it takes a long time, but there are definitely deals out there.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, some of the best deals are going to be because of hardship for the person that's living in there.
Yeah, but sometimes you're helping them out, right? They need the cash or whatever. And
exactly. At the same time, like, a lot of people sometimes might want to be out of that property as soon as possible to get that pain or that stress. So I mean, it's not really, you're not taking advantage of them either.
No. You don't do that. But, having cash really helps. Living below your means for as long as you can, and just stacking up the cash. I mean, when I was young and all my friends were buying these big houses, I was just like, man, it's really tough. And I always felt less successful, but I also, now I don't have that debt. Right?
Exactly.
And we're able to build up a significant war chest that when it got older and was ready to buy and do different things, I had that cash and I wasn't just strapped as much. So I would encourage you to embrace that.
Yeah, I agree. But I mean, that just goes to show the difference between generations. Like none of my friends, or just I have one friend who purchased a property in Pittsburgh, but the rest of my friends, I mean, aren't even thinking about or aren't even remotely close to being able to purchase a property out here in California. It's just absolutely ridiculous right now.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
So, so you talked through your real estate business. I really appreciate that. Were there any other businesses that you wanted to elaborate on? The ones that you talked from your podcast, the episode that I listened to?
You know, one of the things I did, and I would just encourage everyone who's listening is always to try to do new things and new challenges.
Right.
When I sold Tech Restore, I didn't really have anything else going on. I was like, okay, I got to do something here. I had the watch business was still kind of going on, but it had been trending down as part of that, kind of that life span concept. And so I had a lot of people on the show that were young and were all, working from the beach and doing everything with their phone and embracing like social commerce. And, I made a comment on the show one time. I said, I've got to get into this, man. I'm getting older, but I just cannot miss out on this, what I believe is a very significant shift in from e-commerce to social commerce. And so I decided that, okay, I'm going to do an experiment and I'm going to talk about it on the show and I'm going to just see if I can launch a business from my phone. And so I did a ton of research. What's the best business to be in? I'd been in businesses where the products lost value literally every single day. If you're in technology or consumer electronics, everything on your shelves and in your warehouse, they're just losing value while you watch them. So I wanted to get into some business that didn't have that problem. And so after a bunch of research, I decided on, high-end handbags for women.
Okay.
I know nothing about that business at all. I buy my clothes at Costco basically. And so I not that, but I do understand that delta, that the difference between what I could purchase it for and what I could sell for. And I'm very good at doing research. And after, probably 6-8 months, I started buying and making connections and buying junk is what we say is trash. That's how that's the technique I use to get attention. If I want to buy from a distributor, a retailer, I'm nobody in this business. They don't know who I am. But I go to them and say, just sell me your problems, sell me things you can't sell, return stuff your vendors returned or customers returned that's damaged and defective. And what I'm trying to do is just build a relationship. And I it's like the cost of tuition, if you will, because I want them to know that I'm trustworthy. I want them to know I can pay quickly. And after a while, I started getting access to better product. So I built that business up pretty significant. I think it'll do maybe $1 million this year. And it's just me. I'm a solopreneur. I didn't want to have any, I'm not retired, but I'm retired from having a bunch of employees. I've done that and it's great, but it has its ups and downs.
Drawbacks, right? Yeah. When did you decide that you needed to, expand and actually hire, top talent?
When our first business, it just started growing so quick that I couldn't do it. I couldn't do enough of it. It was, I could just see the opportunity. I couldn't answer the phone fast enough. I couldn't,
that's a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. I couldn't ship the product fast enough. I've always tried to be in businesses that, scarcity is really important, and I was in the Apple business, in one way or another for, I don't know, 15, 16 years, 17 years, something like that. And that is a great business compared to being like in the PC business, right? Where there's no margin and everything, just everybody considers it, to be cheap and this kind of thing. So high margin stuff has always worked better for me. Lower volume, higher ASP, average sale price. I could make more by selling less, but you just still have to manage it. And I couldn't handle shipments coming in the door, so I had to hire a warehouse person. I couldn't handle answering the phone, so I had to hire, a receptionist who then eventually became a salesperson, who then eventually became our sales manager. So we just all kind of came up together. And I really didn't know how to, work on any of this stuff. So I had to hire technicians, and then we had to start an internship program because we just needed people. We needed bodies.
Did you ever take money from VC or angel investors?
No, I didn't do it. We did some friends and family investments in the beginning, but not as an equity, but just as a interest type loan, and we paid all that stuff back. Okay. But I really am protective of my time and answering to people, and that's why I mentioned that when you have those investors, it's bad enough having to answer to the bank. I can't stand it. They're not like me. They don't want any risk, right? They want a guaranteed thing, and they look at the paper and they say, "Oh, well, these ratios or this or that." And I say, "Well, just give me another couple months, and I'll do some deal, and then everything will change," because it does over and over and over. So I've been very weary, and could I have built something bigger? Possibly. But would I have accumulated the personal wealth that I have over the last 25 years? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it really comes down to how much risk that you're willing to take. And it sounds to me too that you're somebody that doesn't want to borrow too much money from anyone because you don't want to be, owing anyone.
I hate debt is just it's a killer. As soon as you can get out of debt, the better you are. It is slower. We like to buy, like even real estate. We like to buy real estate, not borrow to buy it.
Really? So you just walk up to these sellers and you just hand them the cash.
Well, that's how you. I mean, you have to wire transfer, of course, but that's how you get smoking deals. Now, if you want to refinance after and go buy a second or a third, but I sleep really good at night. I don't worry about it. If I don't want to work, again, I'm 55, so I'm older than probably your target audience, but I always wanted to be at the place I am now, where I can decide if I want to work, like this week, if I'm going to go on a trip, if I'm going to do this, I can do that. So it just depends on what you want. What's your definition of success?
Yeah,
and everyone has a different version. That's great. I just have always wanted freedom and flexibility, with my time. What I want to do, and I always want to be learning, and challenging and learning new things. I'm really into that because I get bored too quick. I definitely have some sort of ADD type thing, but I've learned to harness it, because once I start to get bored, I just realize, okay, I need to teach someone to do what I'm doing. And I always would tell my employees this. I said, you should always be thinking of teaching someone to do your job. And often they would look at me kind of horrified, like, is my job at risk? Am I going to get fired? No, don't you want to do something else? Aren't you going to be bored in a year if you're just doing the same thing? But some people, the answer is no. So you have to be careful.
Also true.
Your risk profile is probably very different than your employees. So you got to, I've gotten in a little trouble with that before.
So for people, just taking it back to real estate, I mean, you strike me as somebody that wouldn't put anything less than 20% down if you're first getting started. That's what I did. I mean, I know a lot of people, a lot of my friends are looking into these 3.5, 5%, 10% down. What are your thoughts on putting down the least amount of money on real estate?
I would just say, if you're young and you don't have much to lose, I would do anything I could to get into the market. If you want to be in the real estate market, I would also I'd also get my real estate license. I'd also become a broker, so you could save money on all this stuff. I would also get really well connected with a good contractor so that you can kind of bring everything in house. The people that I know that have really built wealth have done it because they control the ecosystem. Right. They do the renovation. They manage the contractor works for them. Maybe they sell the house, so they're not paying fees to someone else. So I'm like I said, I'm very comfortable with risk. I can't stand going on a roller coaster because it scares the hell out of me. But risking a couple $1 million to make some money, that's okay with me. It doesn't bother me. But as you build up things over time, your risk profile may change. And so you need to start thinking about, okay, what do I want to do? And what happens when the market shifts? And where do I have it's kind of that diversification thing I mentioned. You know, if you have a bunch of properties that they're doing great and the market takes a turn, which it always does eventually. If you're really stretched thin, can you survive that downtime? You know, and maybe if you can't and you're in your mid to late 20s or early 30s and everything, you get wiped out, well, you got time. You can build it back up, and let me tell you, you learn a lot. You're a way better business person after that. But if you're in your 40s and you have kids in school and this kind of thing,
that's different.
Maybe that kind of risk isn't the best way to do it. So I think it depends on where you're at in your journey and you know, what resources you have.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, if you're just getting started out, you have to do things like that. But I mean, you're talking to a guy that put $400,000 on credit cards to go buy computers to sell. So that's huge risk. I mean, compared to buying a piece of real estate. So absolutely, I would do those things if I.
That's crazy that they were even willing to give you that amount of money at that.
You have like. Yeah, but you know, you get like 40 cards and it just works. It works. And when your margins are high, when you're flipping product, you can pay that, you know, you don't pay any interest because you're paying off that cash, you know, within 30 days, really, really fast. We could do a whole show on maximizing credit card benefits. So anyway, to answer your question, I think that those kinds of risks are acceptable at certain points along the way.
Well, yeah, it sounds like you've kind of dabbled with both owing money as well as just paying cash outright. You've been on both sides of the spectrum. That was all super, super helpful, Shannon. The last question that I wanted to ask you, I noticed that you are having an upcoming book in the next couple of days or so. I believe it's called eBay Unlocked. You mind telling us a little bit more about what that book entails?
Sure. So I'm interested in, like I said, new things. I've always wanted to write a book, but I never figured it out. A little context. I tried to start a software company after I launched this handbag business on my phone, and I realized I needed some software. And so I created a bunch of content around the launch of this new company. And about 10 months into it, my partner that I had picked, he kind of went sideways on me. So my investment, everything crashed. And I was like, okay, I got some software out of it, but that's about it. But I had all this content. So I said, you know what? I'm going to publish it. I'm going to put this in a book, and I'm going to learn the publishing market. So I hired a coach, this lady out of New Zealand that is very successful at self-publishing. And I published my first book in 2019 called Poshmark Unlocked, which is the platform I really learned a lot about and was, you know, had some success with that business. So after that book took off, it's done really well. Pretty good following. And again, it's just a different part of my revenue stream. And I decided, you know what? I've been selling on eBay for 20 years. I speak at eBay conferences. I've met their CEO, a couple of them over time. And I speak at they have an event called Becoming eBay for all their new eBay employees every quarter. And I always talk at that event here in San Jose.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's great. And so, as you can tell, I have a big mouth. I like to talk about this stuff. And
that's perfect for the podcast.
Yeah. So I figured I'm going to do the same thing. I basically, you know, wrote a couple of articles a week. Some of them I pushed out on my blog to my groups that follow me. And then I just accumulated all this content again and talked about my journey on eBay and how to be successful on eBay, how to basically create, you know, a 6-figure income on eBay. And that's what I'm still doing there. I sell, I don't know, 15, 20 grand a month worth of product on eBay.
What?
It's just a great business.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely talk more about that another day.
Yeah. So that book comes out. Yeah. So that book comes out on Tuesday. You can find more information just at my website at shannonjean.com. I'm sure you push it in your show notes or something like that.
Yeah, I'll put it in the description.
Yeah, it's cool. But I love talking about this stuff. This is a great, you know, there's lots of opportunity out there, and I would love to see more people take it. And I think it's unfortunate that so many people sit on the sidelines and talk about what they'd like to do versus taking the action to do this stuff. Yeah.
I mean, just getting started is the hardest step for a lot of people. Like once you get started, it's kind of like you said, Shannon, earlier in the call, you said that you start making those connections. So I think that is something that is definitely beneficial. Just learning more about e-commerce in general and how to make money online. That's just kind of the way that the world is headed right now.
Yeah, it works good. And you know, to your credit, reaching out to different people, I know, tracking down who you want to talk to, who's
Uh-huh.
successful in this realm. I commend you for that, because that is, there's plenty of people right now sitting on the couch watching sports or whatever, having beers on a Sunday, and here you're, making these connections and talking and learning new things. That's the difference that it takes. Turn off your TV, don't sit down, just hustle, and you'll be successful. Because if you keep trying enough new things, success is going to eventually come your way.
Yeah, well, Shannon, I don't have cable.
That's a first step.
So that's kind of where I'm at right now, but super, super helpful. I really appreciate you hopping on, Shannon. I had one, actually, I lied. I do have one more question for you. I just wanted to know if you had any, final words of wisdom for the listeners.
Well, I think I'd go back to the concept of action. It's, your idea is only, ideas are nothing. Everybody talks about this and that, but it's implementation that is going to make the difference in your life if you want to be an entrepreneur. Yeah, the action. So even small little steps can help you succeed. And back to that, can you figure out how to make just a little bit of money? If I talk to people, I always ask me, are you doing anything? Are you publishing content? Do you have any kind of revenue or this kind of thing? Action, small steps, building a content library, doing things like you're doing. Start a podcast. It's very simple. And it doesn't matter if 10 people listen to it. It does not matter. You're building a lifetime library that people are going to listen to. Create your website, do your blog, start selling something, learn how to buy and sell. Action, not talk, action. And I've always found, because there's so many naysayers and people just don't believe you are going to be successful because so many people aren't, I've had far more success talking about what I've done than what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I would leave you with that. So just, take action. So.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shannon. Again,
thank you.
That's a great closing statement. So appreciate you. We'll definitely stay connected, and appreciate you hopping on.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric.
All right, Shannon. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Take care.
All right.